Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Grossman. I know a variety of you who are here, and welcome to those who I don't know. I direct career services at the Marxe School at Baruch, and I'm with my colleague, our assistant director, Samantha Bruno, who's waving, and then we're happy to host this New York State Senate Fellowship information session for CUNY graduate students. And we're mostly going to let Nick Parrella take the lead and do some presenting on the fellowship itself. And then there'll be plenty of time for question and answer after he speaks about the fellowship. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Nick. Thanks for being here.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Suzanne, thank you. Samantha, thank you so much to the both of you for arranging this information session, and welcome to all of the students. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy days to come and meet with us here. Again, as Suzanne had mentioned, my name is Nick Parrella. I'm Director of Student Programs here at the New York State Senate. And I wanted to share an opportunity with you that may be of interest for students who are going to be graduating this semester with their graduate level degree. And it is our New York State Senate Graduate Fellowship Program. It is an on-site experiential learning program that is based in Albany, New York. And it gives students the opportunity to come here and work in the New York State Legislature, the New York State Senate specifically, and really get a chance to see the public policy process and everything that gets intertwined with both policy, politics, and get to see how members in an elected body represent constituents that they in their communities all throughout the state. This program offers a stipend of $50,000, which is paid out in biweekly installments from the time that you arrive in the program until the completion of the program. And our opportunity, which we're recruiting for right now, is our 2024-2025 cohort of fellows. The program will start in mid-September this year, and then it runs until about the third week of June in 2025. Again, as I mentioned, it's an Albany-based fellowship, so students would be required to find housing in the Albany area to move up here before the program started. I want to take you through a little bit about the fellowships, the various fellowship lines that we offer, and then we'll kind of open the floor to questions that any of you have regarding the application process, or just kind of the program in general. So I am going to share a screen here, and hopefully our New York State Senate Graduate Fellowships page on our website has popped up. And you can see here, I'll click on our brochure link. This kind of gives you a little bit of a write-up about the various fellowships and sort of our timeline for how we consider applicants. So you'll see up at the top of the page there in the blue header, you got the key dates. We are currently in the application period. Our deadline this year for applications is May 1st, which is a Wednesday. And then throughout the months of May and June, we do candidate interviews with our fellows applicants, and they're virtual interviews. So it's much like, what we're doing here today. They're through Microsoft Teams, though, and I send out links to all the candidates who are going to interview. Typically, we have our decisions by late June, early July, and we notify the candidates at that point. And then that gives you the opportunity to find housing up here in Albany. Our orientation starts in mid-September. We do about a week and a half long orientation with the new fellows, where we bring in guest speakers from all different walks of life here in the Senate. You get a chance to meet some of the stakeholders, the movers and shakers who make this place go. And it kind of gets you acclimated to life in the Senate. One of the things I really like about this fellowship program is that it provides an opportunity for students to kind of ease in to the fellowship, right? We usually spend the months of September through December having you in your placement office, getting to learn the lay of the land so that by the time January rolls around, when our legislative session starts, you're ready to hit the ground running. So again, that duration of the fellowship is September through June. So again, this would be September 24 through June of 25. We have 4 different fellowships to offer. Our first one, and the one that we have the most opportunities in, is called our Legislative Fellowship. There's usually 12 to 13 that we give out each year. The assignment here is to an individual member of the state Senate, right? So this is an individual elected member that you would be placed with. We work with both party conferences here in the Senate, since it's a Senate-wide program. Currently, the Democratic Party has the majority of seats in the New York State Senate, and the Republican Party has the minority position in the state Senate. But we do work with both conferences, so you may be matched up with a member from either conference. We'll talk in a little bit about how we try to match up fellows with members. But again, this legislative fellowship, you'll get to see the policymaking process. You will get to see how the individual member that you're working for represents their constituency. Now, we have 63 state senators in New York, representing 18 million plus residents of New York State. So as you can imagine, the needs are very diverse depending upon the member that you are placed with and who you would be working with. You could be working with somebody who is a member in Long Island or New York City or Buffalo. Or upstate in Plattsburgh, right? Central New York, the Southern Tier, right? There's a lot of different areas. New York State is a big state. So you will get to see that aspect. Many of our legislative fellows perform a lot of legislative research for their offices on topics of interest to that particular member. A lot of them will take meetings with interest groups and advocates who come to Albany each week during the legislative session to lobby for their particular bills that they would like to see passed and enacted into law. You get to go to session, see the legislative sessions and how that plays out, and certainly play a part in the legislative process, everything from looking at committee agendas to filing sponsors' memos, right? Each bill that is generated here in the state Senate, a proposal has a sponsor's memo that goes with it. That talks really about why the member is proposing this piece of legislation. So a lot of our fellows get a chance to draft those sponsors memos, which is kind of neat. Another fellowship line that we have is our Richard Roth Journalism Fellowship. This fellowship, there's only one spot for that each year. And that fellowship placement is to the majority press office. I was a Richard J. Roth Fellow. I'm going to date myself here, but it was 22 years ago now when I did the program in 2002, 2003. But in the press office, you really get to see the communication side and the message development side for the majority, again, which is the Democratic Conference here. So you'd be doing things, writing speeches, talking points, following the news, something that has certainly changed since I was a Roth Fellow is the explosion of social media. When I did this fellowship, I did not have Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. It didn't exist. During my time in the press office, I did get a chance actually to be introduced to blogs, which are now kind of dinosaur, given what we have now with Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all the different channels that are out there. But certainly that position is very interesting for those who may be interested or have a communications background. Another fellowship that we have is the Weeby Public Service Fellowship. This, again, one fellowship line here, just one fellowship per year. This placement is for the Majority Council Program Office. It is typically for students with a legal background or those contemplating kind of a legal background or have maybe had some experience in that field. The Majority Council Program task is you are kind of representing the entire majority conference. And so like this year, our Weeby Fellow is in the council program office working on energy issues. That just happened to be where there was a need, and he has some specific knowledge and expertise in that area. And so they placed him with the energy policy team. So he's been doing a lot of that. And then last, but certainly not least, is our James Begain Fellowship in Finance. Again, that is one fellowship offering for this year, and the placement is to the Majority Finance Committee. Again, you'll be working on behalf of an entire conference. The Democratic Conference has 42 members of the 63 seats in the chamber, so they do have 2/3 of the members, so it is quite a large conference. But with finance, you'll be looking at revenues and expenditures. So if you have a love of spreadsheets and pivot tables, and is that something that really kind of is drawn to you, or if you have a background, if you've been working on like a public finance degree, maybe an MBA, even public economics, that's typically where we draw for that fellowship from students who have graduate degrees in that realm. So those are the 4 fellowship opportunities that we have. Again, total about 15 or 16, right? 12 to 13 legislative, and then 1 each for the Roth, the Wiebe, and the Begain. The Roth, Wiebe, and Begain are what we like to call central staff fellowships. So you're working again for the conference, rather than if you were in a legislative office, you'd be working for one individual Senate member. So again, $50,000 stipend paid out biweekly installments. I can take you through, well, let's see if does anybody have any questions here. I've been kind of going on for a little bit. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? We can certainly entertain those, and then I'll get into our application process, and I'll call up the application on our screen as well. Yeah. Doesn't seem like anyone has any questions for now. But why don't we take a look certainly at our application. This is a fillable PDF, so you are certainly able to fill these fields in. You will end up having to print it out though to kind of send it to us, or we'll get into how to get it to us. But here it gives you the opportunity to kind of check off which of the fellowships you're interested in, right? And you can even print it out and put 1s and 2s in these boxes to let us know which ones you're really interested in. We do consider everyone for a legislative fellowship. So even if you put down there that Begain is your first choice, you may not receive that one if you're selected, but you would also be considered for a legislative fellowship as well. So we take the different fields here. One of the things I like to show is this field here, the preferred policy areas. We ask students to take a look at our list, which is on the next page, of standing committees, and to choose 3 of those policy areas that they'd be interested in working on and learning a little bit more about. And here they are, everything from aging to women's issues. So you tell me, hey, I'm really interested in commerce, economic development, and small business, or maybe you're interested in energy and telecommunications, you put that down as one of your policy areas. And we try to match up fellows in legislative fellowship with members who work in the areas that they listed, right? It's not 100% guaranteed, but usually we're pretty good. Say if you really like labor, we try to get you with the chair of the labor committee, or if you really like health, we try to get you with the health chair committee chair. So that is one of the things we do. But that's not to say that that's the only thing that you'll be working on, because our members are typically members of 4 or 5 different standing committees. So while they might be the chair of, say, higher ed, they may also be on procurements and contracts, or education, or even transportation, right? So when you get placed into that office, you'll get to see a variety of the policy areas that that particular member is interested in. And then below on the end of page 2, we have an application, a handy dandy checklist here that kind of walks you through all of the different components of the application that we need to have a complete application. There's official school transcripts from your graduate and undergraduate universities and colleges. your most up-to-date resume, a one-page personal statement that tells us all about you. What are your interests? What are you hoping to get out of this program, and why did you apply? An original graduate level writing sample, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Any of your graduate level classes that you've done a paper for that you're especially proud of or got a really good grade on, so 8 to 10 pages, send that over to us. We certainly accept longer paper writing samples as well if you need it, if you've got a 15-pager in there. The 2 memoranda, one is a policy proposal, which will be a 1-page policy proposal. And then there'll be a 1-page policy rebuttal to your policy proposal. And in the policy proposal, we'd like you to either analyze a current existing public policy, or if you want to go out into the world and suggest your own public policy of something you think there ought to be a law on, you can certainly do that. In the policy proposal, we ask that you analyze it and talk about the advantages of the policy. What are some of the good results that would happen if you were to enact this policy? And then in that 1-page rebuttal, we ask you to turn around and talk about the potential disadvantages if you implemented that policy, or maybe some of what are the unintended consequences that might result from that. And the reason we kind of do this is because we want fellows to see that there are multiple sides to a given public policy issue. Matter of fact, one of the things, if you're in a legislator's office, that you're going to see is that on some of these really hot button issues, your member is going to get lobbied by both sides. And then I used to say 2 sides to the issue, but now it's multifaceted. It could be 3 or 4 sides to an issue. And, you know, you will encounter advocacy groups and constituents who are going to come in, you know, wanting to speak with your member. You may be taking those meetings. And so in the morning, you may be meeting with a group that is very pro this particular piece of legislation. And then in the afternoon, you got to turn around and meet a group that is diametrically opposed, and they're con on this particular piece of legislation. And you've got to be able to navigate those waters, you know, in order to be able to sort through, you know, what both sides are talking about, so that you can inform, you know, not only your staff that you're working with, but also the member as well. And so that writing exercise with the policy proposal and rebuttal kind of gets you thinking about the different ways that public policy affects many different stakeholders. And again, in a state as large as New York, with 18+ million residents, someone's bound to be affected positively and negatively by something that comes down the line, right? And so that's kind of what we deal with here. Again, indicate your 3 preferred policy areas. We see that down there. And then the last, but certainly not least, is requesting 3 letters of recommendation from professors and professional acquaintances that you have. And so if you have, you know, professors that you've worked with, you know, will give you a really good recommendation, you certainly want to ask them. If there's some, you've done another internship, or if you worked someplace else, and you have a supervisor, you know, who you think would really write you a great letter of recommendation, you can certainly ask that person as well. So it can be a mix of professors and, again, professional acquaintances. One thing I'll say is that if you're thinking about applying for this program, you do want to reach out to your professors as soon as you can to kind of get it in their radar that you're going to be looking for a letter of recommendation. And again, you want to pick the ones who you know, can certainly speak to your talents and abilities, and really your aptitude for doing a fellowship program like this. So I've kind of covered everything in terms of the application and what's there. Happy to open the floor up to questions if anyone has any that they'd like to ask.
I have a question, sir.
Okay, sure. Who is speaking?
This is Nona Morao.
Hi, Nona.
Yeah. How can we apply for these fellowships? What is the link? Could you please resend it to everybody so that we could apply? Also, can we choose the standing committee?
Yes, I'll take the second question first. Yeah, on the application, you'll want to choose 3 from this list of the standing committees that I have on the screen. And you'll want to put them right here in that the 1, 2, 3 boxes of the preferred policy areas. And then in terms of where you want to apply, couple different options, right? You can compile all of the application materials, get them into one big envelope and mail them to us. We can accept it that way. And I can show you our address, which is on our brochure. Or if you compile everything and you want to make a scannable PDF of everything, you can send a PDF, and I will, in the chat box, I will put the email address for that.
Yeah,
It's just our students@nysenate.gov account. So you will see it there.
okay, thank you. And last question from me.
Sure.
What are the time frame for application?
Yep. So our application deadline is May 1st, 2024. So it's on a Wednesday this year. And then I got to go back. That. Going back to our brochure, we conduct the interviews virtually in May and June. And then we typically have our decisions to notify candidates by the end of June, early July. And you'll see in the key dates up there, the program starts mid-September with an orientation, and it runs through the following June. Also, there down here at the very bottom of our brochure is the address if you want to compile all of your application materials and then send that to us. We have the Office of Student Programs, 208 Legislative Office Building, Albany, New York, 12247. That would be the address where you'd send it to.
There's a question in the chat about if this program's open for OPT or CPT international student candidates.
So our requirement for the fellowship program is that applicants would need to provide proof of eligibility to work in the United States for the duration of the program, which is September 2024 through June of 2025.
So I think that means, yes, you can use your OPT. But the Senate,
Yeah,
assuming, doesn't
yes.
typically sponsor afterward.
Right, yeah, depending upon, I have had a student who's used an OPT in the past. It just needs to cover the length of the fellowship. And we can certainly, just a long button here, but let me get back.
Catherine's asking how many people apply to the fellowships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, generally we're around 25 or so. And we usually take around 14 to 16.
And if, can I please ask one more question? After the
Go ahead.
deadline, the application, after the interviews, etc., if everything hypothetically goes well, when will the fellowship start? What will be the date?
Yeah, it starts in mid-September. Right now, tentatively looking at September 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question about that orientation period.
Yes.
And I just wanted to see if you could maybe elaborate a little bit, because I'm most interested in knowing whether at that point fellows get training on specific writing styles specific to, the legislative process. Do we walk in ready in January, knowing exactly what our representative is going to expect from us, that sort of thing? Thank you.
Yeah. So I will say that, each office has a placement supervisor. And so that placement supervisor is really responsible for giving the assignments to that particular fellow, regardless of the office that they're in. I will, if I can quickly call this up. And it may take me just a minute here. But
My name is Nona. How can I assist you today?
here it is right here. So on the screen, you will see this was actually our orientation schedule for the current cohort of fellows who started in September. So as you go kind of through here, they do get a computer training with our Senate Technology Service office. So that kind of gets them acclimated to the world of our intranet and all the communications and how we do things here in the Senate. They also get a chance to meet with the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission. So to your question about knowing how to write and maybe draft bills and things like that, we actually did 2 seminars with them. We did a part 1 and a part 2 this past year, and I think the fellows really enjoyed that. We were able to get a couple of members of the Bill Drafting Commission to come and meet with them 2 times to kind of show them everything you ever want to know about the parts of a bill in total detail. And like I said, I think they really, really enjoyed that because they got a little bit of a homework assignment. They came, it looks like they were on a Tuesday and then they came back on Thursday. And the homework assignment was to kind of work through the parts of a bill and kind of, where would you find this in law, that type of thing. And I think, that really kind of gave them a nice primer to working here. They also get a chance to meet with the journal clerk and learn about Senate chamber procedures so that when they go to legislative session and when it starts in January, they know a little bit more about what's the nomenclature there, right? What's this language? Bill coming out of committee, what is a message of necessity? All the lingo that only people who work here know. And so we try to get them in with as many of those people. But as you kind of see here, we give them a well-rounded tour. They get to meet with the Senate Finance Committee, Council Program Office. They get to take a tour of the state capitol, which is always nice. We've even incorporated meeting with our licensed clinical social worker. We have a sort of a product here called Senwell New York. Fellows have access to a range of mental health services. We give them free access to the Calm app. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that. But it's really kind of neat, and they get a chance to speak with Alex, who's our licensed clinical social worker there. We do bring back former fellows, which is always, for me, the most fun event of orientation. We get former fellows who are still working here will come back and sort of impart their knowledge, and share their experiences with the new fellows, and it's kind of a nice welcome event. So that's kind of how orientation works. It gives everybody, like I said, a kind of nice introduction before you get placed into the office.
Thank you. That actually calms me down. No need for the app now. Thank you.
Well, you get the app anyway, but
Okay. Thank you again.
There's a couple more questions in the chat.
Okay.
Sophia, for the policy memos, can you clarify whether each of the 2 policy memos requires a rebuttal or whether both memos cover the same issue from different perspectives?
Right, it's the second one. So we're asking you to do a 1-page policy proposal and then do a 1-page rebuttal to your policy proposal. So it's the same issue.
Great. And Sophia, if you have any follow-up questions to that, you can feel free to unmute or put in the chat. Andrew's asking, what are some of the typical career paths fellows pursue post-fellowship? Are there any fellows entering the fellowship with a data analytics background? So two different questions, really.
Okay. Yeah, Andrew, I'll take that, the first one there first. Our former fellows, really the world is kind of their oyster when they do this program. Many of them stay in the legislative realm. And I mean, we're fortunate enough to say that many of our Senate fellows actually do get full-time employment here in the Senate post-fellowship. But I have had some who have gone on to the state assembly. I've had several who've gone to work for the governor or even in executive branch agencies that the governor controls. Some have gone into the world of advocacy and interest groups. I even have one who is an administrative law judge. So he pursued a path in the judiciary. We've had some go down to the New York City to work in city councils, city hall. A few have gone down to Washington, D.C. as well. So really the opportunity is kind of what you make of it and really what you're looking to get out of the fellowship and then thinking about what you want to do post-fellowship. In terms of your second question about the data analytics, I've seen some students who've come here and a lot of times they apply for the Begain Fellowship, the one in finance, where they have had some previous experience in analyzing data, manipulating data with Excel spreadsheets. I know the finance committee really likes that. So those are the types of tailor-made skill sets for that. I haven't, and I've been here 13 years as director. I think it's an emerging field. Certainly, I think it's applicable to anything beyond just finance, right? I don't think that an office would turn down a fellow in a legislative office just because you had a specialty in data analytics. Everyone's looking to try and get into that, to showcase here's data that supports our view on a particular public policy. And so I think that skill set, in my opinion, would be a pretty highly prized one here.
I had a question that came to me that was about the housing and finding housing. Do you, like, how easy is that? And do you have referrals or suggestions of how people should go about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's they're fairly available in the Albany area. We do have a couple source listings that we can certainly send to fellows applicants if they're, want to find out more. I do tell students to look in kind of the local newspapers, apartments.com, Craigslist, anything that any of those sites and sources that you've used in the past are probably relevant here. It has been very rare in the time that I've been here that someone has said to me, I can't do the fellowship because I can't find housing. I think it's more that they were able to find the housing, but it just maybe being away from their home base was a little too much for them. But there are a lot of availability in terms of housing in the Albany area, and you'll find too that it is cheaper than New York City. So your dollar will go farther up here.
Two questions from me. One, can you remind me if, like, say someone graduated last year, like, do you have a limit of how many years out? Do they have to be this graduating class?
Yeah, we'll still accept a year or two. Like if they graduated 23, we would still accept an application. Sure.
Okay, that's what I thought. And what about the placements? Say a fellow is placed into an office and it's not a fit, or they're having issues with their supervisor. Like, what support do they get, or what do you recommend if they find themselves in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, we always recommend they come and speak to us. And we try to navigate whatever the challenges are to get them in a place where they can be successful in the fellowship. On rare instances, I do have to move fellows to another office. And that is, it's, I'd like to say it's kind of a last resort. But over the years, I mean, there have been situations certainly where, we've had to move folks to a better spot for a variety of reasons. I mean, as you well know, when you're dealing with human interactions, a lot of different things can happen. So, and this place is no different from that. But we do try to take care in our original placement decisions to make sure that the fellows are going to be in offices where they will gain a really great experience.
Sir, I have another question, please. I have another question, if I may. This is
Yeah,
Nona
go
Parrella.
ahead. And then there's somebody after you in the chat, but go ahead and ask your question.
So what are the requirements? How many recommendations, like a 3, 2, or do you need from professors or from anybody else that?
Yeah, so the required number of letters of recommendation are 3, and that's stipulated in the application on the bottom part, where there's that checklist that I was showing. You'll see the 3 letters of recommendation. It can be a mix of professors and professional acquaintances.
Okay, thank you.
Someone is asking about housing. Do fellows likely need a car to get to work and other activities? Do they generally get a car while they're there?
I would say most do bring a car here, although we have a very efficient public transportation system here in the Albany area. It's going to depend upon where your apartment is in relation to the downtown Capitol area. The state capitol, the legislative office building, which are the 2 places where your offices would likely be, are really right next door to each other. But it's going to depend upon where you've chosen to live as to whether or not you'd need a car to get to work. Like I said, CDTA, which is our public transportation system, is pretty reliable, pretty efficient. But for weekend activities, if you want to explore outside the Albany area, then certainly a car will help in that regard. Unfortunately, fellows do not get parking while they're here in the Senate. So that's kind of the biggest challenge I usually see. So if you do find an apartment place that's within walking distance, then you're really in good shape. But you can also take CDTA as well.
Question kind of going off of Andrew's previous question about like post fellowship. So I guess what typically happens at the end of the legislative fellowship? Like, is there any sort of like support, for finding post opportunities? I guess what's like the traditional way that people end the fellowship?
Students, I usually, will have meetings for those who want to come and chat with me about what their next steps are. I certainly try to I'll say, hey, if you want to stick around, but your office can't keep you, please provide me your resume, and I'll certainly, keep that. And as I hear of different openings that happen, I forward resumes over. And so, yeah, I mean, we can certainly chat about those things as the fellowship winds down.
I have just a quick question. You might have already said this, but because it comes up for us sometimes. When do people start getting paid? Like they're up there, they're starting to rent their apartment. Like when are they going to get that first paycheck?
Yeah, and owing to the way the system works, just with the controller, the state of New York, usually it's your first stipend check is 4 weeks after the start date. So we always tell fellows you want to maybe have enough money with you for the first month for living expenses and whatnot, until the stipend checks get dispersed.
And did you?
Question,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
how long is the fellowship? Is it how many months?
About 9, mid-September through about the 3rd week of June. So about 9 months.
Thank you.
Is there medical coverage through the stipend, or how would that kind of function?
Yeah, healthcare coverage, health, dental, and vision options are available to fellows. It is a biweekly deduction out of your stipend check, depending upon what you choose. But there's different options, HMOs, that kind of thing.
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
just to go on a different path. I know I asked about the typical career paths fellows pursue post-fellowship. Have you ever saw fellows use this opportunity to learn more about policy and the leadership process, but also go on for a specific graduate degree, like in policy management, or a similar graduate degree, like a doctorate, just to have a little more exposure to the area that they're or interested in, and like pursue sort of like that like academic path? I'm just curious about that.
I have had students who have come here and done the fellowship and then decided that they wanted to continue with their academic career, either going to do a PhD. I've had fellows who've, after doing the fellowship, have gone on to law school because maybe they had like an MPA or an MPP. You know, but then they worked here throughout the fellowship and said, geez, it might be advantageous for me to go, you know, and get my law degree. So I have had students who've done that.
Oh, okay. So it's like a stepping stone, as you would say, like you use this opportunity to pursue any career path as you want, and it's a really good experience, just like learning wise, you would say, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to learn a lot about the policy process while you're here in the fellowship. You know, and then after your 9 months is done, if you choose to go on further into, you know, the graduate school world and get another advanced degree, you know, like I said, I have seen students who have decided, you know, to do that post fellowship once they're finished here.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I had one going back to the benefits when we were talking about that. I was thinking, like, what if you, like, do you get vacation time too? Like, are you building up, or you're discouraged because it's only 9 months? Like, are you sort of like, you've got those 9 months and you're expected to be there?
Yeah, unfortunately, fellows are not eligible for vacation, personal, and sick accruals, like a typical full-time staffer would be, or a Senate employee. We do make that distinction. It is something where, you know, really we want you to be available for the 9 months that you're there. However, we understand that life happens. And so, you know, working with your placement office, you know, there's time closer to the holidays when the offices are kind of, you know, shutting down between Christmas and New Year's, you know, where fellows get a little bit of a chance to kind of get back home and see that. But unfortunately, they're not eligible for vacation and personal and sick leave. But if there's things that you need, we have a process here for requesting time off. So.
Great. Any other questions before we wrap up? This has been comprehensive, very helpful, I thought. And just to reiterate, we're talking about May 1st deadline. I put in the chat application materials, but we're going to email also. And Nick, I know you always make yourself available for follow-up questions over email. And yeah, I just will say, like, this is one of the fellowships that we always promote every year to our graduating students. And we've seen good things come out of it for our graduates. It's 9 months. For those of you not sure about Albany, you know, but you can really leverage an opportunity like this for what comes next, and for people who are really trying to, who haven't maybe done policy work or worked in a legislative office, or in the government side of things. Like, this is a really good chance to do this work and then, you know, take it in any number of places afterward. So we hope we can have applicants from Baruch and from CUNY going to the New York State Senate.
Absolutely. And in the chat room, I put my email address and telephone number. If there's anyone while you're working through the application, if you have questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to me.
All right, so please join me in thanking Nick Parrella for speaking with us today, and we'll send around the follow-up materials. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Best of
you.
luck. Best of luck as you finish up your spring semester and get ready for graduation. We'd love to see some of you apply.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Take care, everyone.